This is a map of every Tesco and every Waitrose in Britain, two of the country's most familiar names, both selling bread, milk, and beans. Yet they might as well exist in two separate nations. Tesco dots cover the map like confetti. Waitrose dots, on the other hand, cluster neatly around London, the southeast, and a few scattered pockets of affluence. A casual viewer might think this is just retail geography, but if you compare it to a map of income, housing prices, or education, the patterns are almost identical. So maybe this isn't really about where people shop. Maybe it's about who Britain was built to serve. Because if you look closely, the supermarket you visit each week might quietly reveal the class you were born into, and how hard it is to ever leave it. The supermarket divide. On paper, both Tesco and Waitrose do the same thing. They sell groceries. But in practice, they represent two completely different Britons. Tesco is everywhere, from deprived seaside towns to inner-city estates. It's the reliable constant, cheap, convenient, familiar. A place where the weekly shop is more about survival than experience. Waitrose, though, lives in another world. Bright lighting, soft jazz, a wine section that looks curated. Customers don't rush, they browse. They talk about provenance, sustainability, and quality you can trust. The two stores reflect a divide that runs through almost every part of British life. The Britain that scrapes by, and the Britain that selects carefully. But how did two grocery chains come to define the class system of an entire nation? Tesco, feeding the working class. Tesco was born out of the chaos of post-war Britain. Its founder, Jack Cohen, started as a market trader in London's East End in 1919. His motto was simple: pile it high, sell it cheap. Tesco wasn't just about selling food. It was about democratizing it. For the first time, working-class families could fill a trolley instead of a ration book. It was cheap, efficient, and everywhere. By the 1990s, Tesco had become Britain's largest retailer, expanding into almost every corner of the country. From industrial towns in the north to quiet rural villages, Tesco followed where people needed affordable food. It wasn't glamorous, but it was dependable. In many places, Tesco replaced the high street entirely. One building that sold everything. But that success came with a cost. When Tesco arrived, small shops died. Local butchers, greengrocers, and bakers couldn't compete with corporate logistics. So while Tesco made food cheaper, it also made local economies weaker. And in some ways, it trapped communities into dependence, because once it arrived, it never left. Waitrose, the taste of Middle England. Meanwhile, in another corner of post-war Britain, a very different philosophy was taking shape. Waitrose, owned by the John Lewis Partnership, wasn't built for efficiency. It was built for aspiration. Its pitch wasn't about saving money. It was about spending well. The brand spoke the language of confidence. Fair trade coffee, organic milk, responsibly sourced everything. Waitrose didn't just sell food, it sold identity, a moral high ground wrapped in eco-friendly packaging. It became the natural habitat of Middle England. Teachers, civil servants, journalists, professionals. People who didn't necessarily think of themselves as rich, but certainly not poor either. By the 2000s, Waitrose was shorthand for a certain kind of Britishness. Polite, polished, and slightly smug. Even its locations were deliberate. The company's internal data models track everything from household income to car ownership before a single store is built. And that's why the Waitrose map looks less like retail coverage and more like a topographical map of privilege. The geography of class. Now let's put that map side by side with something else, median income, where Waitrose dominates. Average household income hovers around $45,000 or more. Where Tesco dominates, it's closer to $25,000. It's not that Waitrose made those areas rich. It's that rich areas attract Waitrose. Supermarkets chase spending power. They follow the gravitational pull of affluence. And once that pattern starts, it becomes self-reinforcing. A Waitrose moves into a postcode, and property prices rise. A Tesco moves in, and they stay flat. That difference is perception, but perception is what drives investment. It's the same invisible dynamic you see in schools, healthcare, and transport. Money flows toward money. Two shopping baskets, two realities. Picture two baskets. In a Tesco basket, white bread, milk, own-brand beans, frozen chips, a ready meal. Total about $14. In a Waitrose basket, sourdough loaf, oat milk, Italian pasta, rocket salad, and sea bass fillets. Total closer to 32. The difference isn't just price, it's culture. Tesco sells calories. Waitrose sells meaning. And that difference reveals something uncomfortable. For one half of the country, food is a question of survival. For the other half, it's a statement of taste and ethics. You can tell yourself it's just a consumer choice, but it's not. Because choice only exists when you can afford it. These are the new uniforms of class, and supermarkets sit right at the center of it all. They know more about us than almost any institution. Your club card history is a digital portrait of your life. Income, health, habits, family size. That data doesn't just predict demand, it predicts class. Companies don't just serve demographics. They reinforce them. They know where the profitable customers are and where they aren't, which means the gap between those two maps, Tesco and Waitrose, will only keep widening when food becomes a mirror. Britain's obsession with class has always been visible in its accents and its schools. But in the 21st century, it's visible in its receipts. A century ago, people divided by industry, miners, clerks, bankers. Now they divide by consumption, Aldi or Waitrose, Greggs or Pret, Costa or Cafe Nero. These are the new uniforms of class, and supermarkets sit right at the center of it all. They know more about us than almost any institution. Your club card history is a digital portrait of your life. Income, health, habits, family size. That data doesn't just predict demand, it predicts class. Companies don't just serve demographics, they reinforce them. They know where the profitable customers are and where they aren't. Which means the gap between those two maps, Tesco and Waitrose, will only keep widening. The broader divide. The Tesco-Waitrose divide mirrors a bigger national pattern. Incomes, house prices, even life expectancy, they all follow the same gradient. Wealth and opportunity concentrate in the South, while the North and coastal regions stagnate. Every decade brings a new political slogan. The Northern Powerhouse. Leveling up. But the numbers barely move. London receives nearly $12,000 of public investment per person. In the Northeast, it's closer to $8,000. And just like that, the economic divide becomes physical. One region has Elizabeth lines, the other has delayed buses. One gets Waitrose, the other gets Tesco Express. What this really means. This isn't about snobbery or taste. It's about how the economy decides who gets stability and who gets scraps. Because every dot on that supermarket map represents jobs, transport links, and spending power. Where Waitrose thrives, communities attract better schools, cleaner streets, higher property values. Where Tesco dominates, those things often erode, not because of Tesco, but because of everything surrounding it. The supermarkets didn't create Britain's class divide. They just mirror it perfectly, in real time on every high street. Conclusion. In the end, it's not about Tesco versus Waitrose. It's about what their maps reveal. A country where even food shopping tells you your place in the hierarchy. Because in a truly equal society, supermarket logos would blur together. They'd overlap, compete, mix. But in Britain, they don't. They cluster, just like wealth, just like power, just like opportunity. So the next time you walk into your local supermarket, look around carefully. The prices, the packaging, even the people in the queue, they're not just selling you groceries. They're showing you where you stand. Because in modern Britain, you don't just shop for food, you shop for identity.